a lot of cabinet ministers, there's something about being in cabinet that really, not only are you an incumbent, but you have that extra profile, you've got that extra sort of, you know, spring in your step, as it were, you know, knowing that more people know you than the other guy, bar none. I mean, you were never in cabinet, but what are your thoughts on that when you saw your fellow colleagues who were in cabinet running again?
I think at the end of the day, when you're in a minority parliament, and all 3 elections, as I said, that I ran in, it was all minority governments, and you really have to work within your team. And, you know, when you're a minister, you may have a great spring in your step, but you have to work with your surrounding local MPs. And I think for constituents, though, and for the voters, ultimately, whether you're an MP or a minister, they want to see results, and they want to ensure that you are very closely connected to the community, that you're coming out, you know, to their events, and also that you're helping them in their time of need for any type of casework. So the closer you are to the ground, minister or not, it's a great title. It comes with a great responsibility. But ultimately for the voter, it's really about who's going to be their voice and who's going to deliver results for them.
But it is a little easier to deliver results when you're in cabinet. But Ruby's quite right. I mean, you can't sort of look like you're cock of the walk because, hey, now I'm in cabinet, because that kills you faster than anything. Right. But at the end of the day, there is a little extra clout there and a little extra profile that can be very valuable, especially in a race like this where, you know, when you're in a tight race.
Or put you in the line of fire.
That's why well, that's true. You are in the line of fire. Yeah.
That's why before most elections, there's a pre-election cabinet shuffle where ministers who are not running again get positioned to go off to their new lives, and there's a a political positioning of ministers, and you see often that MPs or MLAs who are in tough suddenly have nicer hats.
Yep. It doesn't hurt, does it, Don?
No.
No, and you know, we were speaking about Marianne Monsef and her error, which cost her seat because she was a minister in a high-profile context.
They notice your mistakes more when you're in cabinet.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, that's true. More responsibility
Bernadette
involved.
Jordan, tough lobster fishery issue in her riding, in her backyard, that I think impacted on her as well. So it can swing both ways, but the benefit typically does outweigh the downside.
Now that we're looking at the results right now, right, assuming they stay the same within ranges, and we talked about the lack of effect of the PPC, apparent effect of the PPC. When you go back in history and you write in the history books, what's it going to say about the issue of this campaign? Was there an issue of this campaign? I mean, there was all kinds of stuff tossed up, I know, but and the conversation about vaccines, well, it doesn't look like that was a wedge issue that was maybe going to be with the Conservatives, because
I think that was a wedge issue. I think that issue registered for a lot of Canadians. I mean, you know, the Prime Minister, rightly or wrongly, made that a wedge issue. And while some people were decrying the sort of politicization of it, I think for a lot of people in this country who are desperately wanting out of COVID pandemic rules and fear and uncertainty, I think it had an impact, quite frankly. I mean, I think Mr. O'Toole, I mean, the accusations that somehow or other he was playing footsie with the anti-vaxxers was not true. But I think his hard line on vaccinations, even though when you looked at the policy, it was kind of like mandatory, but not necessarily mandatory, right? But still, I think that, that using that as a wedge issue moved a lot of Canadians.
Let me take a crack at your question. So what's the issue of the election? So here's the try. So Mr. Trudeau put forward the idea, COVID and post-COVID, we need the progressive approach that he argued that he laid out, and which Jagmeet argued that he actually was a co-architect on, let's say. And the public looked at that and then listened to the contrary pitch, which was from Mr. O'Toole, who actually was basically saying that he agreed, but wanted to take it in a slightly different direction, a more fiscally responsible direction. And basically, the public didn't find him convincing in the role. And so they said, we like where we're going and we want to keep going where we're going. And the contrary pitch that came from Mr. O'Toole wasn't persuasive. And I guess one of the reasons why is he was trying to face both ways, in some ways. Yeah? Trying to hold his Tory base and persuade progressives that they could trust him to do what they want to do, and they didn't buy it.
He's trying to hold his Tory base while also seeing what's happening to the right of him with Maxime Bernier as well, and suddenly, you know, you're seeing that. I mean, there are some interesting ridings. I'm trying to watch as the results come in, but, you know, in some of those 905 ridings, there are some pluralities there. I know you can't necessarily take all the PPC vote and sort of lump it into the Conservative category, Adrian, but you can certainly say, you know what, you could see a lot of that going there, and that might have made a couple of changes.
So talking to some of the people that were in and around the Andrew Scheer campaign in 2019, they would tell you that, or they told us that there was probably 7 to 9 ridings that it cost them. I don't think it's going to be that high this time around, but we just saw a few on your riding watch, at least 2, where the PPC candidate is receiving around 1,200 to 1,300 votes, whereas the Conservative is in 3rd place, but could have overtaken either the Liberal or the NDP, where it's tight. So I don't think it's going to be as significant this time around, you know, with a 7 to 9 vote riding split. But I think there's part of the issue with the NDP underperformed in a lot of places around the country, and we know that as the NDP does better, Conservatives do better as well. But you know, your original question, Steph, with respect to what's the takeaway from this election, I think there's a number of takeaways from this election. First few days, we're going to discuss why did we have one? Why did we have this costly, you know, basically what's going to amount to a cabinet shuffle after, you know, in a few weeks when Parliament does eventually resume. And then how we hear from Justin Trudeau tonight, you know, about, as Don says, you know, a bit more, not chastened per se, but a little more humble and recognizing that this country has massive and significant divides, because I can tell you, Western Canada is looking at this, particularly Alberta and Saskatchewan, is saying, you Eastern, you know what, did it again.
The other interesting lesson, though, and I think this is important, is that you can win an election with an issue that maybe the voters don't support you on if they think you're authentic on it, if they think you believe in it, and if you hold your ground on it. And there's no question, it's very, very difficult to sort of judge when to cave and when to hang tough. But I think, you know, I think Mr. O'Toole did do some damage to himself in terms of, particularly on the gun control, because that was an issue where, again, people are very strong on one side or the other, so you got to pick a side. It's a lot like the abortion thing, you know, you got to be one side or the other. You can't waffle in the middle because you lose everybody when you do that.
Well, and for 8 days he did, right? For 8 days he did waffle.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he permanently waffled.
Yeah.
And his momentum basically stopped at that point.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, that's
they
right.
were in first. They'd been in first for you know, almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it just.
Yeah.
And I
Can we
think
just talk
Trudeau
about
came
this?
out.
Western Canada is watching this thing for a minute. Rachel Notley is leading the polls right now in Alberta, and the current Premier of Alberta has essentially disqualified himself with a grotesque mishandling of the vax issue. You know, Wab Kinew is leading in Manitoba right now. We'll see what happens with the new leader, and the government in British Columbia is a Democrat government. So I'm not sure that the true blue West that looks at a progressive parliament and says we've been excluded is the story in Western Canada anymore. I just don't think Western Canada is like that anymore.
Yeah, but
Alberta in particular is a new West, and sure, it's pretty blue right now, you know, on the map, in part because of a pretty nice New Democrat Liberal split for the Tories, but that region is changing.
The capital region in and around Winnipeg and the capital region in and around Edmonton, certainly for the NDP, looks like there's potential opportunities. But the NDP generally does look better out of election in opposition. And so I think everybody has written to Jason Kenney's, you know, political obituary. I think it might be a little too soon for that one. And the potential new premier of Manitoba is going to be either Shelley Glover or Heather Stephenson, a woman for the first time in the province of Manitoba, and who will, and one in particular, I think will do very well by that province.
All I'm saying is the West is not unanimously looking at tonight's election result and going, we have been betrayed. Right, so the kind of highly divisive politics that you would have seen in the 70s and maybe the 80s is not there now, because you know, somewhat contrary to the map, the Tories are not a monolith in Western Canada anymore.
My text messages would say otherwise.
Going back to your question about the issues, you know, I think it was really about the 5 C's. It was about childcare, and having talked to many families, you know, the $10 childcare, you know, a day was very appealing to them. I think it was about climate change with a young generation and looking at the future. It was really about combating, you know, the COVID post-pandemic recovery and what was that going to look like. like about the affordable cost of living. And, going back to what Don said, I think about community safety. And, after O'Toole had flip-flopped, in regards to upholding the ban on the assault rifles, Trudeau had come out with a statement saying that community safety is not up for negotiation. And I think that really resonated with a lot of people. So I think it comes down to the 5 C's when you talk about identification of the issues.
Okay, we've got to actually, we've got to move on right now because in Toronto Centre, we've got Annamie Paul, the Green Party leader, is going to be speaking momentarily. She has lost again to Marcy Ian. In fact, in the current standing, she's in 4th place now behind NDP Brian Chang and Conservative Ryan Lesser. But again, Marcy Ian has won Toronto Centre fairly handily as well. But we're going to hear from federal Green Party leader Annamie Paul, who certainly did not have the campaign she was expecting. That is set to go any second now here.
Were totally forcefully removed from their homes. Many people today suffer the generational trauma resulting from the legacy of colonialism and acknowledge that they join us today as our neighbors. And when we talk about people forcefully removed from their homes, we would like to acknowledge the hundreds of unmarked graves of Indigenous children found in Saskatchewan and British Columbia and other parts of Canada. This is a tragedy, a legacy left over from the residential school system, and a stark reminder of the genocide that occurred as part of this country's development and establishment. Approximately 150,000 Indigenous children from across the country from 1828 until 1996 were taken away from their homes, stripped of their language and families and culture by these church-run schools in Canada in a failed attempt to assimilate them. Let's remember that every child matters, and that we will do more in our time to recognize the mistreatment of our Indigenous peoples and do more to make amends. This will start with acknowledging the actions that take place and to make a pledge to hold our governments accountable. And I will say this again, let's make a pledge to hold our governments accountable. Thank you very much.
And now, please join me in applause for the leader of the Green Party of Canada, Annamie Paul.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for being here this evening, and thank you, Adrian, for that very special land acknowledgement. Merci tout le monde d'être ici avec nous ce soir. Nous sommes sur les territoires traditionnels des Mississauga, Anishinaabe, et Haudenosaunee. I also want to recognize we are on the traditional lands of the Mississauga, the Credit, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee. First, let me start by congratulating. We're still waiting for the results, but it looks like we are going to be sending certainly 2 and looks like probably 3 Greens back to Ottawa in the next session of Parliament. Je veux féliciter sincèrement Elizabeth May. Je vais le faire maintenant. Je sais qu'on attend encore quelques résultats, mais je veux féliciter Mike Morris in Kitchener Centre.
Kitchener Centre.
Incredibly well-deserved, an incredible leader that's headed to Ottawa. And also, Paul is in a very close race, but I feel very confident that he's going to take that one over the finish line. So I'm going to send him the good luck of, I hope it's good luck, to wish him good luck now in that seat as well. Alors, je veux sincèrement remercier tous nos candidats et candidates autour du pays. Ils ont fait un incroyable travail en très peu de temps. Je sais que ça prend beaucoup de passion, beaucoup de sacrifices, beaucoup de nos dédications pour décider de se présenter. Beaucoup de courage aussi et beaucoup de force. Alors, je leur remercie sincèrement pour avoir décidé
for having decided to make a jump in this election, and sincerely, on my behalf and on behalf of our party and all our members.
I want to sincerely thank every single candidate who ran for the Green Party in this election. It takes passion, it takes dedication, it takes sacrifice, it takes courage, and so many of them were running for the first time. We told them that it was time to run. We told them that we needed a new culture in Ottawa, we needed more diversity in Ottawa, and so many of them took up that challenge. I am so proud of them. I want to thank them sincerely on my behalf and on behalf of all of our members and all of our volunteers. Let's give them a round of applause. And I say that particularly so because this was a pandemic election. This was the fourth wave. This was a very difficult time to be running in the first place, very difficult circumstances. And so it means even more that they stepped forward. It means even more that they chose to live their values by standing up for us and running for us in this election. I'm so grateful to them. I also want to thank all of our members and all of our volunteers. We have so many here tonight. So many people, again, who put their lives on hold, who told their kids to go watch another video while they made phone calls, while they went canvassing. People who, again, were very passionate about the idea of sending more Greens to the next Parliament. It takes so much, and absolutely, we are driven by our volunteers and their work. And so thank you so much to all of our volunteers all across the country. Please know that whatever size our contingent of Greens in Ottawa, it's because of you and the work that you did, and I thank you sincerely. Nous sommes un petit parti dans un système qui est créé pour des grands partis, qui est créé pour les partis traditionnels. Alors nous sommes toujours très reconnaissants de nos bénévoles pour leurs efforts,
our volunteers for their efforts, their sacrifices and dedication, because it's through them that small parties like ours was able to achieve all of this. And we have 3 MPs that will be in the next session of Parliament, and I want to thank them.
And I want to, I just spoke with Marcy Ian before coming down here. I wanted to sincerely congratulate her. I hope that, and I'm sure that the people of Toronto Centre will make sure that, that she provides them with good representation. Congratulated her on her race here in Toronto Centre. Clearly I am, well not clearly, but I will tell you that certainly I am disappointed. It is hard to lose, no one likes to lose, but I'm so proud of the effort, the creativity, the innovation that our team brought to this race. We promised to offer real representation. We promised to offer a real choice to the people of Toronto Centre who have so much need, so much work that needs to get done, and you did that, and I thank you for that. I have some of my family here and some of my family in the audience, and I want to thank them as well. This is something where we're all in this together, you know. They lived every second and breathed every second with me. And I've said this many times. I mean, I've been campaigning in one way or another for the Green Party for the last almost 2.5 years now. And so this has been a very long journey for our entire family. And of course, you know, I love you, Mark, Malachi, my son Jonas, who's not here, my mother-in-law, my nephew, my sister-in-law, all of my family that is here. Et en plus, la famille qu'on a créée pendant cette élection et pendant les dernières années. There are so many members of my family that, you know, they're not necessarily family by birth, but they're certainly family because of what we've been through together. They're the most special people in the world. They are everything that is good about our country, everything that is good about our party, and I love you, and I will be grateful to you forever. Alors,
So I believe that the decision of the population of Canada is to send back the same MPs in the same proportion for the same session of Parliament.
What we seem to be seeing tonight is that the people of Canada have decided to send essentially the same MPs back in the same proportions to Parliament. They're sending back another minority government in basically the same numbers that we have seen before, and so we are now back to the status quo. I would say that we are back to the status quo, except that we are returning, unfortunately, more divided and more polarized than before this election was called. That is certainly part of the legacy of this election that I will say we shouldn't have had, whether that sounds self-interested or not. Malheureusement, il y a des divisions qui ont été créées par la convocation de cette élection.
The calling of this election, and there will be a lot of work to do to repair these divisions.
We need to repair these divisions. We need to ensure that whatever wounds were created during this election are not permanent, because the people of Canada clearly are saying, we want you to work together. We want you to collaborate. You have got to find a way to do that, and you've got to find a way to deliver us the help we need for the rest of this pandemic. They are also clearly hoping, and certainly I am hoping, my hope to those who have been given the privilege and honor of going to Ottawa to represent their communities, that we will deliver, that they will deliver on the promise that is Canada. The promise that is Canada in terms of the climate, because certainly we have everything that it takes within us if we decide to unleash it, to truly attack that existential crisis, to reduce our greenhouse gases, to ensure that we have the strong, sustainable, world-leading green economy of the future. I believe that is what people in Canada expect of the next Parliament. Et j'en suis sûr que les peuples ici au Canada veulent être rassurés que la prochaine session de Parlement va être concentrée sur assurer que nous ne serons jamais dans cette position dans l'avenir. That we will never be in this position again. This is what people in Canada want. They will never forget the tens of thousands of deaths in long-term care, the almost 1,000 people that died out in BC during the heat wave, all of the sacrifice, all of the pain of the pandemic, and they want us to do better, and they want us to do better together. And so if that can be the legacy of the next session of Parliament, then that will be excellent work, and you can count on every single Green who was elected tonight to be part of that work, to work hand in hand with every single party towards those common goals. And so, just finally, I came into politics because I believed in the power of positive collective action to create strong public policy, to create a better world, both here in Canada and abroad. I still believe in that. I still believe that we have that greatness within us, and I believe that this is the time for us to truly unleash it, as I said. Alors, pour moi, je suis fière d'avoir
בחירות בקנדה, לילה טוב. אם אתם מאזינים לנו כאן מצפון אמריקה, בוקר טוב. אם אתם נתקלתם עכשיו בשידור הזה מטורונטו. ובכן, אלו הן התוצאות לפי הבחירות האחרונות כאן ברחבי קנדה, אחרי קמפיין של 36 ימים בלבד ו$600 מיליון, על פי כל המדגמים של רוב הערוצים כאן בקנדה. הליברלים זוכים לרוב גדול מעל הקולות שזכו הקונסרבטיבים, וג'סטין טרודו ממשיך לעוד, זאת שאלה, האם זה לעוד 4 שנים או לעוד 18 חודשים, כי גם הוא אמר שאולי עוד 18 חודשים נצא לבחירות נוספות. בכל מקרה, המדיניות של ג'סטין טרודו, המדיניות של ג'סטין טרודו, תומך בחיסונים, תומך במגבלות נוקשות נגד הבלתי מחוסנים, ג'סטין טרודו שתומך בהמשך מענקים לאנשים שנפגעו בעבודתם בגלל הקורונה. כל המדיניות הזו של ג'סטין טרודו בעצם הוכיחה את עצמה בקלפיות. 35 מיליון קנדים יצאו להצביע ב10 ימים האחרונים, כשבעצם ב-24 שעות האחרונות הייתה רוב ההצבעה, ועל פי כל המדגמים, כפי שאנחנו רואים את התוצאות בכל מחוז, כרגע אנחנו רואים בניו מרקט, האדומים, הליברלים מובילים ביתרון משמעותי על הקונסרבטיבים, וכפי שאמרנו, ג'סטין טרודו צפוי להרכיב את הממשלה הבאה. האימור שהוא לקח מסתבר שהיה משתלם לו. היו הרבה ביקורות כשיצאנו לבחירות כאן לפני קצת יותר מחודש וחצי, חודשיים, שהוחלט על בחירות בזק ברחבי כל קנדה. היו הרבה ביקורות על כך, למה קנדה צריכה את זה בעיצומו של גל קורונה רביעי, אבל ג'סטין טרודו אמר שהוא רוצה שהקנדים יאמרו את דברם ויגידו האם הם רוצים בהמשך המדיניות הנוכחית או האם הם רוצים לשנות מדיניות. הוא אמר את זה יותר מפעם אחת. הוא רוצה לדעת מה העם מבקש, האם העם רוצה להמשיך באותה מדיניות של מענקים, של הגבלות על בלתי מחוסנים, של להמשיך לעודד חיסונים ברחבי קנדה, של הגירה, מדיניות הגירה. במהלך השנים של טרודו, מאז 2015, קנדה הגבילה מכסות הגירה ממדינות מסוימות, אך מצד שני הגדילה מכסות הגירה על בסיס הומניטרי ממדינות עולם שלישי, וג'סטין טרודו קרא לקנדים לצאת ולהגיד את דברם. האם הם מעוניינים שהמדיניות הזו בראשותו תימשך? וכפי שזה נראה נכון לשעה זו, שעה וחצי לאחר סגירת הקלפיות, כמעט שעתיים למען האמת, הקנדים אמרו כן, אנחנו רוצים שתמשיך. בימים האחרונים היה קמפיין משמעותי של המפלגה השמרנית, גם אצלנו, גם בשכונות היהודיות. ארן אוטול, מנהיג המפלגה השמרנית, הבטיח לנו, ליהודים, לישראלים, שאם הוא ייבחר, הוא מיד יעביר את השגרירות לירושלים. זה נראה שזה לא הספיק. זה פחות או יותר המצב נכון לעכשיו. אנחנו ממתינים לראש הממשלה ג'סטין טרודו, שאמור בדיוק בעוד 9 דקות לעלות עם נאום הניצחון שלו, ואנחנו מצפים לשמוע גם מהמועמדת שלנו שהתראיינה כאן בערוץ פרספקטיבה, מליסה לנצמן, בת ישראלים, יהודייה, שתבוא ותאמר את דברה. למליסה כרגע, למרות שג'סטין טרודו לא נבחר, סליחה, אני טעיתי, למרות שאיירין אוטול לא נבחר, לפי התוצאות שמגיעות בשעות אלה, למליסה לנצמן יש יתרון במחוז שלה. אנחנו רואים כאן אותה כרגע במקום הראשון במחוז טורנהיל, שזה בעצם השכונה עם הריכוז היהודי הגבוה ביותר, ואנחנו מקווים שהיתרון הזה היא תצליח להמשיך ולשמור אותו. מליסה תהיה איתנו עוד מעט, היא כרגע מקבלת את התוצאות, היא נמצאת כרגע עם משפחתה המצומצמת, אבל אנחנו עוד מעט נשמע ממנה כאן בשידור חי. אני מעריך שהיא מחכה לקבל תוצאות קצת יותר מגובשות מאלה. אז מליסה לנצמן שלנו, אפשר לומר, כנראה, לפי איך שזה נראה נכון לרגע זה, כנראה מקבלת את מקומה בפרלמנט. כרגע אנחנו רואים שהתוצאות מתחילות להתעדכן. בואו נקשיב קצת למה שאומר הקריין של הטלוויזיה בשידור חי כאן בקנדה, וננסה להתעדכן. לפי כל המשדרים, הליברלים זכו בעצם בממשלת מיעוט. הוא לא הצליח כנראה להגדיל את הממשלה שלו, שזו הייתה מטרת הבחירות הראשונית שלו, אבל בואו נתחבר קצת לשידור המקומי, ואנחנו כמובן מיד, גם כשטרודו יעלה וגם כשמליסה תהיה איתנו, תהיה מוכנה לתת הצהרה לנו, אנחנו נהיה הראשונים שהיא תדבר איתנו. אז בואו נתחבר קצת לשידור המקומי. אתם צופים כרגע בפרספקטיבה שמעניקה את השידור הזה כשירות לצופים שלנו כאן בקנדה, צופי הערוץ הישראלי בקנדה. אנחנו ממתינים לנאום הניצחון של ג'סטין טרודו, שאמור לעלות עוד כ6 דקות. כאן בקנדה לרוב הם מדויקים, אז אנחנו מקווים שזה יקרה בזמן. בינתיים בואו נמשיך ונתחבר לפרשנות המקומית. בבקשה.
Popular vote with about the same number of seats, and it comes back to, you know, the point we were talking about earlier. This really was not a change election. The overwhelming number of incumbents from all parties were re-elected. None of the leaders actually made a successful argument for a change from the status quo, which Canadians apparently thought was working.
Yeah. Or they wanted it to work.
But
from the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they wanted, I mean, they may not have been happy with a bunch, and listen, and when you've seen the response, they were not necessarily happy with everything that was going on, I mean, whatever leader, but I think it was, they wanted this to work. I mean, I think Canadians tend to have this thing that minority governments are good, so make it work.
Minority
the last 20 years.
Yeah, and minority parliament.
It can be
The opposition parties will dominate many of the committees, of course, in a minority parliament, so many of the things that had been left on the order paper will come back, so there's still more scrutiny and accountability to certainly, you know, the larger point of why did we even have this. Someone actually just cleverly texted me and said, if I was a brave editor, I would have taken my front page from October 2019 and just put it on the front page for October 2020 or September 2021. But, you know, I think a minority parliament is really, it was functioning. And, you know, Mr. Trudeau is going to have to acknowledge and recognize that this $610 million plus election that has amounted to nothing, no change ostensibly, is really the expensive cabinet shuffle. But I think there's a lot of questions that he needs to answer.
So do you think that Justin Trudeau might come out tonight, Don, and say something, okay, you've said you don't really want change, but we're back, and I will commit to you to not call an election for 4 years and make it work?
No, he can't make that commitment. That would not be smart of him to say that, because you can't make those kinds of commitments because you don't know what the circumstances
are. You can only say
are.
Well,
when they got elected, they break promises all the time.
When he was elected in 2019,
but listen to us all talking. We're all saying minority parliaments are good things.
So why not?
Maybe they should make it one. But if I could just throw in one other point, I would not be true to the spirit of Ed Broadbent, God bless his soul, without also saying we have a perverse electoral system that has robbed the Tories. And also, by the way, that gives the Bloc the same number of seats in Parliament as the Democrats with half the vote.
Yeah.
So, you know, somewhere along the line, maybe we'll come back to this point, that is this really serving us well?
Ruby, you've been in government. You were in the Paul Martin government, minority government, in 2004. What was that like as an MP, knowing, and at this point we've got Aaron O'Toole walking in, so you may have to keep this answer a little bit brief, but what was it like as an MP in a minority parliament?
You're always in campaign mode because you never ever know when there's going to be a no confidence vote and you have to go back to the polls. So it's great for your constituents and it's great for your community because you're always present and you would much rather be in your constituency than out in Ottawa.
No kidding. All right, so Aaron O'Toole making his way through the crowd here, and this is O'Toole headquarters in Oshawa, holding his wife's hand. He's waving. Of course, we're not seeing huge crowds because this is a pandemic election, but Aaron O'Toole, it's interesting here because according to what we understand from Justin Trudeau's camp, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, we can now call him that, is going to be speaking in about 3 minutes' time. Opposition leader Aaron O'Toole is about to start speaking. We'll see where this goes. So again, 3 minutes. So let's go. Hold on here. O'Toole and his family. Big waves to the crowd here. So let's listen into the.
אם אתם עכשיו הצטרפתם לשידור, אז אנחנו כאן בשידור חי מקנדה, כשתוצאות הבחירות מתחילות להגיע, ובהן ניצחון משמעותי למפלגת הליברלים בראשותו של ג'סטין טרודו. כרגע אנחנו רואים על המסך את ארון אוטול, מנהיג השמרנים, המפסיד של הערב הזה. יש פה סיטואציה מעניינת שקורית כרגע. ארון אוטול עולה כרגע על הבמה ונראה שהוא מתחיל או מתכוון לומר דברים, אבל בדיוק עוד 2.5 דקות, 3 דקות, ג'סטין טרודו גם אמור לתת הצהרה בשידור חי, אז בואו נראה מה הולך לקרות פה. בינתיים בואו נאזין לארן אוטול.
Merci beaucoup, thank you. Well, it was after 1 in the morning when I first addressed the nation as leader of Canada's Conservatives, so it's fitting I address you late again. At the start of this pandemic, I called for a Team Canada approach to combat COVID-19. 18 months later, our nation needs that more than ever. Les Canadiens ont passé trop de nuits blanches à s'inquiéter pour la santé de leurs
staying up, worrying for the health of their loved ones, the loss of jobs, and the health of their kids. The pandemic have increased the small differences between us. It has also made division worse between Canadians. Sadly, this election has just made things worse. And I'm here tonight, more determined than ever, towards this wonderful country.
5 weeks ago, Mr. Trudeau asked for a majority. He said the minority parliament was, quote, unworkable. But tonight, Canadians did not give Mr. Trudeau the majority mandate he wanted. In fact, Canadians sent him back with another minority at the cost of $600 million and deeper divisions in our great country. Just days ago, he said he would hold yet another election within 18 months if he didn't get his way. Quelques jours seulement, M. Trudeau disait qu'il allait déclencher une autre élection dans
another election in 18 months if he didn't get his way.
Mr. Trudeau was hoping for a quick power grab. Instead, he has thrust us into what he has promised will be 18 months of perpetual campaigning. Our country is facing the most serious economic challenge since the
Breaking news, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are heading back to Parliament Hill with a minority government.
Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole is speaking to his supporters now in Durham. Let's listen in again.
L'inflation à son plus haut niveau en 20 ans.
And inflation is at its highest level in 20 years and it continues to go higher every day. Families have a hard time to meet the ends, and to face those challenges, those huge challenges, we need to work together. We need to continue the fight.
For too long, we have been divided. For too long, we have seen politicians pit region against region, neighbor against neighbor. But when we are divided, Canadians get left behind. Mr. Trudeau thinks Canadians should endure 18 more months of divisive campaigning so he can try once again to get the election result he wants. We need to heal the divides in Canada, not risk worsening them for selfish gains. A few months ago, I told Conservatives that our party needed the courage to change because Canada has changed. Over the past 36 days, we have demonstrated to Canadians that we have set out on a path to engage more Canadians in our Conservative movement. One that addresses the challenges of today while advancing the dreams of tomorrow. Ours is a conservatism that dwells not in the past, but learns from it to secure the future. Qu'on offre un nouveau mouvement conservateur, un mouvement
that we offer a new conservative movement to face today's challenges, a conservative movement to achieve tomorrow's dreams, and a conservative movement that is not looking only towards the past, but is learning and is acting for the future.
It is a conservatism that reveres strong communities and compassion for one another, for our environment, and for those in need at home and abroad. It is a conservatism that respects hard work and character, and the fact that millions have come to this great country for liberty and opportunity. It's a conservatism that believes reconciliation is more than a box to check. It is the very keystone of Canada reaching its potential, and it starts with clean drinking water as a basic human right still denied to Indigenous children born today. And above all else, it is a conservatism that believes Canada is the greatest country on earth and that our best days are on the horizon. A conservatism that builds Canada up. Let's build it up. In the months ahead, thank you, friends. In the months ahead, as Mr. Trudeau gears up for yet another election, we must continue this journey to welcoming more Canadians to take another look at our party. More people voted for Canada's Conservatives than any other party, and that's a strength to build on. Our support has grown. It's grown across the country, but clearly there is more work for us to do to earn the trust of Canadians. On est le parti fondateur de ce pays.
We are the founding party of this country and the party of its future. The Conservative Party will defeat the Liberals, but only if we continue to grow.
We have shown ourselves to have the courage to be bold and to have the courage to change. We must hold fast to that courage. We must show Canadians that we will not waver in our commitment to grow. On doit continuer de gagner la confiance des Canadiens. On a travaillé fort.
We've worked hard. We made progress. But the job is not over.
As we prepare for the election Justin Trudeau wants in another 18 months, we will take stock of what worked and what didn't. And we will continue to put in the time showing more Canadians that they are welcome in the Conservative Party of Canada. Above all, we must continue to show Canadians that whether you're black, white, brown, or from any race or creed, whether you're LGBTQ or straight, whether you are an Indigenous Canadian or came to Canada 5 weeks ago or 5 generations ago, que le français soit votre
whether French is your first or second language,
doing well or barely getting by, whether you worship on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, every day or not at all, you are an important part of Canada and you have a place in the Conservative Party of Canada. Friends, I'm standing here tonight because of the steadfast support of my true partner, the love of my life, Rebecca. Thank you for being my rock and my safe harbor. And I'm so glad more Canadians got to know the wonderful person you are these last 5 weeks. I also want to thank my children, Molly and Jack, for being my inspiration. It's because of you that I believe so strongly in securing Canada's future. My mother passed away when I was 9, but I know she is here tonight because I see her in my daughter Molly, who shares her name. I've been so grateful to have my second mother to guide me to this very day. I'm thankful that she and my dad, who inspired me into public service, are here tonight. Thank you. Merci à mon excellent équipe de
Thank you to my wonderful campaign team. Thank you for your trust and thank you for your commitment to serve this great and wonderful country. Thank you to our incredible candidates and to our fantastical volunteers.
I joined the military at 18 to serve Canada and its people. And some of the people I served with are in this room tonight. I will never stop serving this great country. And my pride in Canada has deepened these past 5 weeks as I've gotten to meet more incredible Canadians from all walks of life. My family and I are resolutely committed to continuing this journey for Canada.
This evening I spoke with Mr. Trudeau. I congratulated him for a hard-fought campaign.
The Prime Minister to put the unity of this country and the well-being of its people first. And I told him, if he thinks he can threaten Canadians with another election in 18 months, the Conservative Party will be ready. And whenever that day comes, I will be ready to lead Canada's Conservatives to victory. Thank you, Canada. Let's get to work.
לילה טוב קנדה, לילה טוב טורונטו, בוקר טוב אצלכם בישראל. אנחנו עכשיו בשידור חי כאן מקבלים יחד איתכם את התוצאות בבחירות הפדרליות כאן בקנדה. כפי שזה נראה, נכון לעכשיו, ג'סטין טרודו הוא זה שירכיב גם את הממשלה הבאה, ואנחנו בעצם מצטרפים לשידור הזה, מחכים לנאום הניצחון של טרודו, שבעצם קרא לקנדים לפני בערך חודשיים, כמה ימים יותר, כמה ימים פחות, קרא להם לבוא ולהביע שוב את דעתם, ככה הוא קרא לזה. הוא אמר, אני רוצה לשמוע אתכם, האם אתם רוצים שנמשיך בקצבאות הקורונה לאנשים שאיבדו את מקומות עבודתם? האם אתם רוצים שאנחנו נמשיך בנושא של מגבלות לאנשים שהם לא מחוסנים, דבר שטרודו קיבל עליו המון ביקורות, וגם לא מעט עגבניות שזרקו עליו תוך כדי מסע הבחירות שלו, מתנגדי חיסונים כאן בקנדה. טרודו רצה לשאול את העם הקנדי האם הוא מצדד בהמשך מדיניות ההגירה שנותנת מקום נכבד להגירה על בסיס הומניטרי ממדינות עולם שלישי. טרודו רצה לדעת האם הקנדים רוצים להמשיך את הדרך שלו, הדרך הליברלית, בהתייחס לקורונה, בהתייחס ליחסים עם ארצות הברית, בהתייחס לצינור הנפט המפורסם שכל כך הרבה מדברים עליו, שאמור לחצות את קנדה ולהוות מקור הכנסות נוסף בייצוא לארצות הברית. טרודו רוצה לדעת איך להמשיך להתנהל עם הבלתי מחוסנים. זאת דילמה וסיפור ענק שקורה כאן בקנדה בחודשים האחרונים. ככל שיותר ויותר קנדים מתחסנים, כך נשמעים יותר ויותר קולות שמתנגדים לכפייה, שמתנגדים למגבלות מיוחדות על בלתי מחוסנים. טרודו יצא בנאום שלו כשהוא הכריז על בחירות בזק, הוא אמר, אני רוצה לשמוע אתכם. האם אתם רוצים שנמשיך או האם אתם רוצים שינוי דרך? שינוי דרך כפי שהציע ארן אוטול, שראינו אותו לפני ממש דקות מספר בנאום שלו. אתם יכולים לראות שכאן בקנדה הכל נעשה בדרך הקנדית, מאוד מנומס הכל. המפסיד עלה ראשון, המנצח, אנחנו כבר רואים בשידור חי את האולם שממנו טרודו עומד לנאום ממש בעוד רגע קל. הכל נעשה בדרך הקנדית. אין כאן סיפור אמריקאי של זיופים או טענות לזיופים. אין כאן את מה שהיה בארץ, שבעצם ממשלת מיעוט היא זו, או מפלגה שזכתה למספר הקולות הקטן ביותר, תצליח בדרך זו או אחרת להקים את הממשלה. הכל הולך כאן באופן מאוד מאוד מסורתי. הבחירות האלה היו מאוד רגועות, אני חייב להגיד. לא דומה לשום דבר שאנחנו ראינו בבחירות האמריקאיות רק לפני 9 חודשים, או בבחירות בישראל. כמעט ולא הייתה תעמולה. צריך לזכור שהבחירות כאן גם נעשו כבחירות בזק. בעצם לפני פחות מחודשיים טרודו הכריז על הבחירות, והקמפיין נמשך 36 ימים בלבד. 36 ימים שבהם זה עלה למשלם המיסים הקנדי לפי הערכות כ$600 מיליון. $600 מיליון עלה קמפיין הבחירות הזה, ואנחנו כרגע בסופו, בשעה 10:30 בדיוק, לפני שעתיים וקצת, נסגרו הקלפיות, ומיד, תוך דקות אחדות התחילו המדגמים שמיד הראו בכל מחוז ומחוז, בכל שכונה ושכונה, כמעט רוב לליברלים. מה שמיד הביא את כולם, את כל ערוצי הטלוויזיה, בעצם להכריז על המנצח כטרודו ומפלגת הליברלים. אנחנו ממתינים עכשיו לשמוע את ג'סטין טרודו. אנחנו מאמינים שהדברים שהוא הולך להגיד יהיו דברים שמחברים. הוא הולך לקרוא לכל הקנדים, לומר שהוא ראש הממשלה של כולם. אתם יודעים, אנחנו מכירים את זה ממערכות קודמות, במדינות אחרות. בסופו של דבר הם תמיד אומרים אותו דבר. אבל מעניין יהיה לשמוע אם הוא יתייחס לנושא של מתנגדי החיסונים, שעשו לו חיים מאוד מאוד קשים בחודש האחרון במסע הקמפיין שלו. לאן שהוא לא הגיע, הם חיכו לו שם עם שלטים, עם צעקות, משהו שהוא מאוד מאוד לא אופייני כאן בתרבות או במנטליות הקנדית, אבל זה מה שהיה. ומעניין יהיה לשמוע איך הוא יתייחס אליהם, האם הוא ינסה, אני מאמין שהוא ינסה בעצם לאחד את כל החלקים כאן בקנדה, והוא יגיד שהוא ראש הממשלה של כולם, לא רק שאלה שהצביעו בשבילו, לא רק לאלה שהצביעו בשבילו, כמו שתמיד אומר ראש הממשלה. את השעות האחרונות הוא בילה עם משפחתו. אנחנו ראינו ושידרנו קודם תמונות שהוא מקבל את התוצאות בעצם כשהוא עם משפחתו, בחיק משפחתו. בתמונות שפורסמו הוא היה מאוד מאוד שמח, הוא היה נראה מאוד מאוד מרוצה מהתוצאות שמתחילות להגיע. וצריך לזכור שהאיש הזה היה עד לפני כמה שנים מורה לדרמה. מורה לדרמה, הנה אנחנו רואים אותו כאן בתמונה שיצאה לפני שעה קלה עם משפחתו, עם אשתו ושלושת ילדיו, 2 בני נוער וזעתות. אנחנו רואים אותו מרוצה, שמח מהתוצאות. הבן שלו נראה כאילו לא מאמין, אבל כן, אבא שלו ממשיך. אבא שלו שהיה מורה לדרמה, בנו של ראש ממשלה שבעצם שירת לפני כ-15 שנה, 15-20 שנה. הוא גדל במסדרונות השלטון, הוא גדל בבית של ראש הממשלה ג'סטין. הוא ליברלי, הוא מתגאה בדעות הליברליות שלו. הממשלה שהוא ירכיב, ואני מאמין שגם הממשלה שהוא ירכיב, מונה ייצוג לכל המיעוטים, באמת לכל שכבות החברה כאן. ג'סטין טרודו מצליח בפעם השלישית כרגע. אלה הם הבחירות השלישיות שהוא מנצח בהן, מ-2015. הוא מצליח לסחוף אחריו שוב ושוב את הקנדים, שהקנדים, ושאנחנו אומרים קנדים, אנחנו לאו דווקא מתייחסים לאנשים שחיים בטורונטו, שהוא מרכז האוכלוסייה הגדול ביותר בקנדה, אבל לאו דווקא אליהם, או לא רק אליהם, אלא גם לקנדים שחיים בפריפריה. וכידוע, קנדה היא המדינה השנייה בגודלה הגיאוגרפי בעולם. הפריפריה כאן היא יותר גדולה מהעיר המרכזית, או מהערים המרכזיות. אנשים חיים כאן בעצם על גבי שטחים אדירים ובמרחקים אדירים. סוגים שונים של אוכלוסיות, יש כאן, הרוב הוא כמובן נוצרי, יש כאן אוכלוסיות מוסלמיות גדולות מאוד. יהודים, אנחנו 1% מאוכלוסיית קנדה. יש כאן, קנדה כמדינת מהגרים מקבלת כל שנה עשרות ומאות אלפי מהגרים מאז היווסדה בעצם. זה המנדט של קנדה, והם מקדשים אותו, ובעצם חלק מהתרבות הקנדית זה בעצם לעודד הגירה, הרב תרבותיות, ואנחנו רואים שההשקפות הליברליות שג'סטין טרודו בעצם דגל בהם, מוכיחות את עצמם שוב ושוב בקלפיות כאן בקנדה. אנחנו מחכים גם לתוצאות האמת לגבי המתמודדת שלנו משכונת היהודים, טורנהיל, מליסה לנצמן. מה שאנחנו רואים כרגע זה נכון ללפני חצי שעה, שדווקא היא הובילה במחוז, בשכונה, מול מתמודדים אחרים. אנחנו רואים שהפער בינה לבין הליברלים הוא לא גדול, 8,470 מול 7,236, זה היה לפני כחצי שעה. עדיין לא התפרסם עדכון לתוצאות האלה, אנחנו כולנו כמובן מחזיקים למועמדת של השכונה שלנו, יהודייה, שהוריה חיו בישראל, ובעצם היא גם ברעיון שהיא סיפרה לנו, היא רוצה לקדם מטרות שיועילו לישראל. אנחנו מאוד מאוד מחזיקים לאצבעות ומקווים שבשעות הקרובות יתפרסמו תוצאות מדויקות יותר, ונדע אם היא נכנסה כחברת פרלמנט במפלגה השמרנית של אוטול. אנחנו ממתינים כמובן לדברי נאום הניצחון של ג'סטין טרודו. כרגע 22 מעלות בטורונטו, השעה היא 12 דקות לפני 1 לפנות בוקר. תוצאות מהמחוזות השונים ממשיכים כל הזמן להגיע בערוצי הטלוויזיה השונים, ואנחנו מקבלים פיד כאן מכמה ערוצים ומשלבים את זה בשידור שלנו, וביחד אנחנו מחכים לראות מה הוא יאמר. 6.8 מיליון קנדים השתמשו בזכות שלהם להצביע לפני ה-20 לספטמבר להיום, והצביעו בהצבעות מוקדמות דרך דואר. ואנחנו מחכים לטרודו, כולם מחכים. טרודו שהולך להרכיב ממשלת מיעוט. הוא לא הצליח משמעותית להגדיל את הרוב שלו. צפויה לו מלאכת הרכבת קואליציה לא קלה, אבל אני לא מעריך שגם קשה כמו שראינו בכמה מקרים בבחירות האחרונות בישראל. בסופו של דבר הוא קיבל את השלטון, והוא ירכיב את זה עם מפלגת NDP ועם מפלגות נוספות. וכפי שאמר איירון אוטול בנאום שלו, נאום ההפסד, הוא אמר, אדון טרודו, אנחנו ניפגש בעוד 18 חודשים בבחירות הקרובות. הנה לנצמן, אנחנו רואים שלנצמן, מליסה לנצמן, elected. הופה, מליסה לנצמן, כרגע אנחנו ראינו תוצאה בשידור חי, נכנסה. המועמדת שלנו מטורנהיל נכנסה. כרגע הופיעה על המסך, 14,000 מול 8,000 elected. אנחנו תכף ננסה להשיג אותה על הקו, דיברנו איתה לפני כן. בואו בינתיים נתחבר שוב לשידור.
And he had a bit of a rough launch when he was elected as leader. You know, he had a bit of a rough launch with his caucus. It took for a while for them to get to know each other, and then it turned out that he does know how to be a parliamentary leader, and he was able to get them to work together as a team. I don't think she knew how to do that, and you know, I don't think it's enough. And I think people from, it's not for me as I'm trying to be a good ally, but I think people from diverse backgrounds would say that. It gets you in the door, but then you got to do the job.
But she was 100%. The knives were out for her literally the next day after she was declared the leader of the Green Party, which, you know, I mean, if we look at the federal debates that we had, the very few, I mean, there was no obvious winner, but she certainly emerged as the most articulate, the most competent. She was the one that certainly held Justin Trudeau's feet to the fire most when it came to how he was dealing with, you know, some of the very powerful women and strong women in his that were formerly in his caucus. I just think it's too bad her own party didn't recognize that. But I don't think this is I suspect Ms. Paul's political future is going to be very short-lived by the end of this week. But I don't think this is the last we've seen of her in terms of, in some capacity.
Brian, what do you see as the future for Jagmeet Singh? This is the second election in a row. Similar seeming result here. Can he stay on for the New Democrats?
Well, you know, the key to survival as a federal NDP leader is to run a campaign that the members are proud of. And they'll be proud of this one. And a good bonus for extra points is to have the balance of power in Parliament. So federal New Democrats are proud of a lot of what they've accomplished with that position. And sure, people would have liked to do better. Yeah. And there's going to be an analysis of this campaign. There were elements missing from this campaign. I deeply regret that the federal NDP has lost its mojo in Quebec. That's its only route to power. And it's time to stop playing for bronze as a party. And that means getting back in gear there. Party needs a closing message. Party needs to be more compelling in more of the country. There's no doubt about it. So there's postmortem to do. But you know, these are points on style. for that leader to realize his potential. Because he's also not to be forgotten. He's by far and away the most popular federal leader and well-liked federal leader and trusted federal leader.
But to your point, it's not enough. It's not translating into seats. How is it that you're running at, 55, 60% popularity
as a package
and getting 16% of the vote?
But the problem, one of the problems with today's politics is that we want our leaders to walk out the door and win, like, first time out or even second, and if they don't, hey, out, gone. You're out the door. And I'm looking at, again, provincial perspective here, but Premier Bill Davis was, almost lost an election. And he didn't get dumped. And he got a minority the next time. And he didn't get dumped. And he turned into an incredibly effective, mature, political leader in this province. He grew, he learned. And unfortunately, we don't give our leaders that opportunity.
Who doesn't have the patience? Is it the party or is it the voters?
But Prime Minister Harper got it. In 06, he got a minority. In 08, he got a minority. And in 11, he gets his majority.
But it's so often, we always have this conversation, oh, gee, how long are they going to last now? They didn't win the election.
But what's it going to take? So if that's not enough, what's it going to take? I mean, is it because of the party politics being just too close now?
You mean the Liberals and NDP too closely aligned?
And the people that are usually elected, from my experience, the MPs that are there get anxious, and then your base that you have as well, they also get anxiety, and everyone wants to try something new all the time, and you never give that individual, that leader, time to grow and to learn and to settle in.
All right, live inside the Vancouver Convention Centre right now, Jagmeet Singh is approaching the podium, and he's going to be making his speech as well. You can see sort of there, of course, beside his wife there, a nice hug and embrace before his speech begins. So it looks like we were expecting Justin Trudeau at 12:30. That is not happening now. Jagmeet Singh is going first, and it looks like the winner is going to go last this evening. Let's listen to NDP leader Jagmeet Singh.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate all of you.
מנהיג ה-NDP.
Merci. Thank you so much to our
Jagmeet Singh, מנהיג ה-NDP.
All our candidates, and grand merci, thank you so much. I want to recognize the hard work of all the leaders and their teams. Thank you for playing your role and being a part of our democracy. I want to congratulate the Prime Minister on his re-election as Prime Minister of Canada. And I want to thank Canadians for voting. And I want to let Canadians know that you can count on New Democrats to continue fighting for you. As we've fought for you in the pandemic, when times are difficult, when people were struggling, when people were worried about their future, we were there for you. We fought to make sure people got more help. We fought to increase the CERB, we fought to increase the wage subsidy, we saved millions of jobs, and we helped millions of Canadians stay at home. We are going to continue fighting for you. Just the same way we fought for you in the pandemic, you can count on us to continue those fights. We're going to make sure that we fight hard to defend our environment, to make sure we're fighting the climate crisis like we really want to win. You can count on New Democrats to keep on fighting to make sure you can find a home that's in your budget for all those people struggling to find a home. We see you, we hear you, and we're going to fight to make sure that there is a home in your budget. To people out there that are struggling with health care, you can count on New Democrats to keep on fighting for you to make sure we get profit out of our long-term care system, to make sure our loved ones, our seniors, never again bear the brunt of any sort of pandemic or any sort of outbreak, that we care for our loved ones and our seniors and put them before profits by eliminating profits in long-term care. And we are going to continue to fight to make sure our healthcare system is there for you when you need it, there for you and your loved ones when you need it, by making sure we include medication coverage, pharmacare, that our teeth are covered through dental care, and making sure that our mental health is also covered and included into our healthcare system. Friends, I also want you to know that we are going to keep on fighting to make sure that the super wealthy pay their fair share, that billionaires pay their fair share, so the burden doesn't fall on you and your families. And I want you to know that we're going to continue to fight for justice for the first people of this land. Indigenous communities that continue to be denied basic human rights, clean drinking water, adequate housing. We are going to continue to fight for you. We've heard your stories. We see you. We are going to fight for you with everything we have. You can count on all of us, all New Democrats, to continue that fight. Pour les Québécois et Québécoises,
For Quebecers,
peu importe le nombre de députés dans notre caucus,
whatever the amount of MPs in our caucus and our team, I want to assure you that we will continue to fight for you. As we did during the pandemic, we were there for you. You know that we had hard times. It was so hard for people. And that's why we fought to increase the subsidy programs that help millions of people in Quebec. And we will continue to help you. Like we increased the salary subsidy and we saved millions of jobs, you can be sure that our team will continue to fight for you. All our MPs will go get victories and gains to help people in Quebec and people from across the land. You can count on us to make sure that we will defend the environment, that we will face the climatic crisis, that we settle the housing crisis, that we invest in our healthcare system. Be sure that we will be there for you. And you can be sure that if we dare together, we can build a better society, and that's exactly what New Democrats will do.
My friends, I want you to know that our fight will continue. We are never going to give up fighting for you and your families. As we have done in the pandemic, as we showed you in this campaign, we will continue to make sure you are first, your families are taken care of, that your needs are met. That's what New Democrats are all about. I want to leave you with something that my mom always taught me as I was a kid. She always said that we are all one. And it is so true. We are connected. When people around us are hurting, we're also hurting. But when we take care of one another, when we support one another, when we lift each other up, we all rise. That's what you can be sure of. New Democrats
Just a quick pause here on CP24. We want to thank you all for watching our special CP24 Your Vote coverage. And we can't thank our panelists enough. Ruby Dalla, Adrian Batra, Janet Ecker, Brian Topp, and Don Guy. Your insightful analysis, so valued. We really appreciate it.
We certainly do appreciate all of you being here tonight. And we'll hand you over to CTV's national election special right now.
At the Pan Pacific, Annie, you know, the NDP, I guess they gained a couple of seats overall.
Right, so, yeah, Lisa, so if you look at, according to the polls currently, what it shows is that the NDP is leading in about 27 different electoral districts or ridings. So this does put them up just by a few seats. What's interesting here, though, is that the party is pointing out that a lot of their supporters indicated the fact that they were going to vote in advance, either at an advance poll or by mail-in ballot. So the party says, you know, they are still hopeful they will be able to pick up some seats. There are a number of very close ridings right now. You know, Edmonton Centre, for example, is one that they're very tight in. Nunavut, the NDP is leading in. Nanaimo is another very tight race that they might be able to take from the Green Party. Edmonton-Griesball, one that they look like they're in the lead. Saskatoon West, one that they're down slightly. So the NDP is basically looking at British Columbia, where a huge number of those mail-in ballots actually went to the NDP, and in some cases the ridings did flip overnight. So, you know, the party was telling me earlier tonight they were really hoping to cross that 30 mark. Right now it looks like they're leading in 27 ridings. But the party is holding out hope that those mail-in ballots, those advance ballots, will be enough to flip some ridings and get them over that 30 mark. Ultimately, what they want, Lisa, is to be the third party. They want to get ahead of the block. They want to be that kingmaker. And as you heard Mr. Singh say, he talked about his priorities. The party is going to continue fighting his priorities, as he said during the campaign, getting pharmacare to people, removing the profit from long-term care, getting the wealthy to pay their fair share, meaning that, you know, taxes do not go up for the average individual, but it's rather the wealthy corporations, the wealthy businesses, and Canada's wealthiest individuals that pay for these promises that Singh has put forward. And you heard him tonight, climate change, another priority. And with the Liberals, you know, they may be able to find a dancing partner in the NDP if they take these priorities that Mr. Singh has laid out very clearly through the campaign and put them into budgets and other documents like that, Lisa.
Really interesting. Okay, Annie, and just so everybody has full perspective here, the NDP, you can see on the bottom of your screen, at this moment, 27 seats. In 2019, they came in at 24, so there's 3 gain, Farouk, your reaction to the outcome, I mean, you were hoping for more, but are you satisfied with what you see?
Yeah, it was about the range. I was told like 27 to 31, something like that. Ruth-Hélène Brosseau would have been nice, but I don't think...
No, she's now in second.
Right, and the advanced poll in Quebec favors the bloc because of the English debate reaction. So, but still, good building blocks. Percentage increase slightly, but overall, if you see the numbers on the bottom of the screen, only the NDP has won, basically. The Liberals, Trudeau didn't win his bet. The Conservative O'Toole is in trouble. The Bloc is at status quo. He should have won more. The NDP is +3. The Green, the leader, lost. The PPC, percentage increased, but Bernier didn't win. So if you look at it, Jagmeet should be really, really happy about tonight, about increasing, building on it for the next time. And it's a minority. Last thing, there's another loser tonight. He's at the National Assembly in Quebec City, Premier Legault, who came out and supported Mr. O'Toole, who wanted to...
אנחנו ממשיכים לחכות לנאום של ג'סטין טרודו, שאמור לעלות בכל רגע, אבל לפני שג'סטין טרודו, אני רוצה לנצל רגע את הדקות האלה, בכדי להסב את תשומת לבכם, לאחת מהתוצאות שכרגע הופיעו על המסך, והיא התוצאה הזו. אתם רואים כאן, לנסמן מליסה כרגע מובילה במחוז טורן היל. מליסה לנסמן מובילה עם 14,532 מול המספרים של המתמודד מהליברלים. אז כפי שזה נראה נכון לעכשיו, היא ממשיכה לשמור על היתרון שלה, מליסה שלנו, ואנחנו נקווה שהתוצאות האלה ימשיכו אל תוך הלילה. אנחנו רואים 14,532 למליסה לנסמן, וממש בכל רגע כרגע טרודו ידבר, ואנחנו נשמע בדיוק מה הוא מכין לקנדה ב-18 חודשים הקרובים או ב4 שנים הקרובות. בואו נתחבר לשידור.
Pictures they needed, especially for that scene right there. It was very colorful and bright. So unfortunately, there was some serious questions we wanted to ask. Singh was, one of them was the main question. With this liberal minority, is the Singh government, the NDP government, committed with working with the Liberals, even though Singh and Trudeau haven't seen eye to eye. And that was the main question we wanted to get in here. We were waiting outside in front of the Vancouver Convention Center, hoping to ask him that, but unfortunately we were unable to meet up with him, and he was able to get up on the podium here and say some key remarks, but we just unfortunately couldn't get any important questions that we wanted to get out on tonight.
Yeah, it's difficult, especially he wants to celebrate the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh. I'm going to go, though, to Glenn, because we're just getting about a 1-minute warning that Justin Trudeau is about to speak. Glenn, obviously, we're looking at pretty much a mirror image of how the House looked at dissolution.
Yeah, so it's going to be a small group of supporters here. COVID rules in effect to limit the size of the crowd, but Justin Trudeau's mother, Margaret Trudeau, is in the crowd, and our Heather Butts spoke to her earlier. Now, the speech he's going to be giving, he's been working on this with his advisors over the past several hours, trying to get the tone right. And I'm told it's going to be a humble speech, not going to be overly celebratory, and it is also going to have to acknowledge that they have lost 2 cabinet ministers, Monsef and Bernadette Jordan, and that's a message that's going to be directed also to his caucus, because there's going to be some unhappiness in the Liberal caucus over the decision to go into an election campaign, and with the result being that really everybody put their jobs on the line, a lot of risk and very, very little reward. Pretty much, as you say, Lisa, status quo. So expecting Justin Trudeau out any moment now.
And Glenn, we're just seeing Deb Schultz, also cabinet minister, seniors minister, I believe. Evan, am I right?
Yeah, she's a seniors
minister. And
minister.
that's King Vaughan, where we saw those massive lineups a few hours ago.
Right. And they put the Liberal campaign put a lot of energy into that riding. Visited there on Saturday, so second last day of the campaign. They were really pushing hard in her riding because they knew she was in trouble, and obviously not enough.
She mailed checks, $500 checks on August 16th to 3.3 million seniors, and she lost her job. She increased OAS in July by $100 a year, lost. Like, look at that. They went after seniors. That was a pretty expensive promise. and she loses the election. Politics.
That's a gain then, Jenny, for the Conservative Party.
That's a good, yeah, that's a good gain for the Conservative Party. It was a riding that originally we won in 2010. It's part of the riding that Julian Fantino represented. So it's a good pickup for the Conservative Party.
You can see a whole bunch of cabinet ministers standing there at the door jam there. Heather Butts, you are there on the floor. We're seeing Mark Miller, Pablo, and Melanie Joly. What's the mood in there tonight, given the fact that it's very similar to how things started before the writ drop?
Yeah, Lisa, the mood is just starting to build here as more people enter the room. Last time you checked in with us, there was about 5 supporters here. So the room is full now, 250 people in the room. The excitement is starting to build. But I heard one of the MPs was asked, are you happy that you won, or are you relieved that you didn't lose? And the MP didn't quite answer that question. So I'm not quite sure yet what Trudeau will have to say when he comes out. I was just speaking with his mother. I can tell you that Margaret is thrilled. She said she is quite proud of Justin, and she feels that when things started to get a little nasty on the campaign, she truly feels that Justin took the high road. And Margaret saying that she's, of course, quite proud of him, and doesn't matter to her that it's a minority government. It is a win, and looking forward to what he'll bring to the table this go-round, Lisa. But certainly the excitement is building. We've got some really young supporters actually on these risers behind this platform where Justin Trudeau will be speaking any moment now. We've been given the 1-minute cue several times over the last 10 minutes or so. So we've got lots of young supporters cheering, rallying, making some noise. As you mentioned, a few MPs in the room, but it is at capacity. They had someone counting people at the door as people were coming in. They closed the doors once they reached that 250-person capacity. So again, this is the same ballroom where they celebrated that majority back in 2015. Not quite that same party, definitely not the number of people, but we'll see if that excitement level gets there when Trudeau comes out, Lisa.
That was a fascinating night. He was, of course, in the third place, and he came out with a majority. Scott, though, you know, Heather's just made an interesting point. There was a lot of negativity in this campaign in the final weeks of it, for certain. It sort of overtook the positive messaging.
Had to win ugly. There was no, I think it's, people don't really like this to be acknowledged, but the truth of the matter was voters were unenthusiastic about any of their options. They made that crystal clear, and by the middle of the campaign, it was obvious to all the campaign strategists running the campaigns that they were going to have to gut it out. And that meant that you were going to have to say, perhaps you're not enthusiastic about me, but you should be even less enthusiastic about the other options. And that is how this was won. It had to be won by inches, and it had to be won, you know, in a grudging way. And again, I think Trudeau benefited from the fact that the pandemic became the focus of people's attentions in the final 10 days, and that allowed him to get over the hump.
So is a win for, I know we talked about this earlier, but now that we're actually looking at this moments before Justin Trudeau steps up to the microphone, he wanted a majority government, he thought he would get it, and he's got the same as he left with.
It reminds me of 2004 when I was helping to run the campaign for Mr. Martin. We started the campaign 7-8 points ahead. By the middle of the campaign, we were behind by 5 points. We thought we were watching someone build our gravestone. We managed to come back and win the election. I can tell you, relief is the right word. You do feel like you dodged a bullet, and I think they will consider this a victory because they continue to be in government, and that wasn't guaranteed.
And we know that Margaret Trudeau considered it a victory, so let's listen into the interview Heather did with Margaret.
And you must be so thrilled.
I'm very content, yes. It was always for a mother, it's a difficult election. Justin doesn't do attacks, but was attacked. And for me, it was like,
hard.
But I've been through it for so many. This is not my first election night.
It's not at all. And so, what did you think of this election then?
I thought it was important that the message seemed to be lost that we're in recovery from a very unusual and serious times. And Justin really needed to get a mandate to understand, and I think it was a chance for everybody to see how Canadians are surviving post-pandemic, or still in it, as many are. So in that way, but politics is cruel now. It's oh, goody! Bye!
Let's go now. Nice try.
Nice try. Yes. I love Justin. He's a kind, compassionate man. I thought, as always with politics, particularly when it's attacking the way it was, they're questioning me, our whole family, as to integrity. I just don't like that kind of attacking politics.
What would you say to him after his third win?
Oh, I'm so proud of him. Always so proud of my boy. No, he never lets me down. No.
What do you think of the fact it's a minority?
I remember Pierre saying that his best government was with David Lewis when it was a minority, because he could really get things progressively done. No, I think it's good. Yeah. You don't want too much power to end up anywhere, do you? It's better to spread it. And I know that Jarmeet is a wonderful man, compassionate like Justin, so the two together will be a good... What am I talking about? Stop! You're just waiting. I'm just the fluff till he comes. I'm sorry?
Do you think you'll want to stay on as PM as long as...
Oh, I have no idea about that. No, I'm just, I don't know why I'm the center here, because honestly...
You wish him congratulations.
I do. I'm so proud of him. He kept the high road. He kept being kind. I like that in our politics more than anything. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you
so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Now go to the main event.
All right, obviously a mother proud of her son. She made an interesting point, Olivia, there, that she always said Pierre thought his best time of governing was under the minority.
They did a lot of things together, Pierre, Trudeau, and David Lewis, the National Housing Program that built lots of cooperatives. I think it was FIRA, the Foreign Investment bill that was very important, PetroCan. So there was a lot of things that was done during that period, I believe.
Antonia, how is Quebec going to react to this?
It's what do they say? Plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. We have the same kinds of results that we did in 2019. Look, he's the Prime Minister. He won a minority government. I think Quebecers are going to accept that, and many of them voted for him, right? The Liberal Party has maintained its seats. It wasn't able to grow the number of seats in Quebec, and that's a problem if it ever wants to regain a majority.
Glenn, if it ever does want to regain a majority, will Justin Trudeau be the leader?
Really good question. I think the feeling amongst the Liberal campaign in Quebec is that they dodged a bullet tonight. They look at the popular vote numbers for the Bloc Québécois, went up, their seat count didn't. They see this as having avoided what could have been a loss of many seats in Quebec had things played out differently, and if their vote wasn't so efficient. They did a pretty good job of targeting their resources at the right ridings in Quebec, but it could have been worse, and I think they're feeling like they're getting out of Dodge relatively unscathed here. But what is it going to take to reverse things in the future? Is Justin Trudeau the right person to do it? In large part, they were kind of sideswiped by an unanticipated event at the English televised leaders debate when the moderator put that question to Yves-François Blanchet that really did seem to inflame kind of nationalist sentiment in Quebec, and Liberals were collateral damage from that. So we'll see how that plays out. You know, generally the way the Liberals work is you alternate leaders from French and English Canada, so maybe it's time next time for an English leader once Justin Trudeau moves on, but don't see that happening, at least not in the immediate future.
And Jody Wilson-Raybould, you were inside that cabinet for a while before the last election, becoming an independent MP. So these are friends and former colleagues. What do you imagine are the conversations unfolding tonight?
Well, I think there should be a serious amount of reflection, particularly for the Prime Minister, in terms of we have a result where we have an election that was for nothing. We have relatively the same numbers within Parliament, and Justin Trudeau did not get what he wanted, which was a majority. Canadians gave him a minority government, and there needs to be some reflection around that, and certainly Canadians are saying we need to work more together. I would say that the question of leadership is both to Justin Trudeau and to Erin O'Toole. I mean, the thing that's different, even though the seats are the same within Parliament, is that we're further divided than we were in the previous Parliament, and it's going to take leadership to bring that back around and chart a path for the country. I'm kind of disappointed, and hopefully in his concession or in his speech, the Prime Minister will show some humility and speak to the country and Canadians who are disappointed with this result.
The Prime Minister of Canada, veuillez accueillir votre chef, le Premier ministre du Canada, Justin.
הנה אנחנו בשידור חי. בדיוק את מה שמתקבל ממטה המפלגה הליברלית, ניצחונו של ג'סטין טרודו.
Thank you, my friends. You are sending us back to work with a clear mandate to get Canada through this pandemic and to the brighter days ahead. And my friends, that's exactly what we are ready to do. There are still votes to be counted, but what we've seen tonight is that millions of Canadians have chosen a progressive plan. Some have talked about division, but that's not what I see. That's not what I've seen these past weeks across the country. I see Canadians standing together, together in your determination to end this pandemic, together for real climate action, for $10 a day childcare, for homes that are in reach for middle-class families. For our shared journey on the path of reconciliation. As Canadians, you've elected parliamentarians to deliver on all this, and our team, our government, is ready.
When I became Prime Minister 6 years ago, I didn't know, I couldn't know what the future would have for us. We didn't know that our country would face the pandemic of the century or a world economic crisis. What I knew already, however, is that together Canadians are able to go through any obstacle. And that's exactly what
טרודו אומר, כשאנחנו ביחד, כל הקנדים, אנחנו יכולים לעשות הכל. אני שמעתי אתכם, אתם לא רוצים שנדבר עכשיו על פוליטיקה. יש לנו עבודה לעשות בשבילכם. שמעתי אתכם כשאמרתם, אתם רוצים לחזור לעולם שעזבתם לפני המגפה. אתם רוצים לדעת שחברי הפרלמנט שלכם ישמרו על הגב שלכם במשבר הזה ומעבר לו. ברגע שנעמוד באופן חזק מול הדרישות, נשנה את העתיד ואת הכיוון שאנחנו הולכים אליו.
You made a choice. You have given parliamentarians a clear mandate.
אתם נתתם לנו מנדט ברור שקנדה רוצה ויודעת מה העתיד שלה. אנחנו נלחם בשבילכם באוטווה. כל יום.
We heard you.
שמענו אתכם.
We're hearing you when you're saying that you
אנחנו
want
שומעים
more
כשאתם אומרים שאתם רוצים עוד עזרה.
places and stronger healthcare system.
אתם רוצים מערכת בריאות חזקה יותר, בתים שניתן לקנות,
The way of reconciliation, investments
אתם רוצים
for the middle class.
השלמה, אתם רוצים שהמעמד הביניים תהיה לו עבודה. חברים, אני מוכן להמשיך את המאבק הזה. הצוות שלי מוכן, אבל לפני כל דבר, אני הערב רוצה להודות באופן אישי למנהיגים של המפלגות השונות. תודה שהייתם חלק מהרגע החשוב הזה. חיים פוליטיים אינם קלים, זה המסלול שבחרנו, כי אנחנו מאמינים בלשרת את אלו שמסביבנו. תודה לכם על השירות שלכם. לכל הצוות של הבחירות בקנדה, שלקחו חלק בתהליך הדמוקרטי הזה, שעבדו מסביב לשעון, ספרו את התוצאות, תודה. הבחירות האלו, אישרו שהדמוקרטיה שלנו והמוסדות שלנו נשארו חזקים. ולחבריי הקנדים, אין עוד כבוד גדול יותר בשבילי מאשר לשרת אתכם ואת הארץ הזו. אם הצבעתם למפלגה שלנו, תודה. תודה שאתם נותנים בנו את אמונכם כדי שנמשיך קדימה לכולם. ואם לא בחרתם בנו, אני רוצה שתדעו שאנו נעמוד בשבילכם ונעבוד בשבילכם בכל יום. כי לא חשוב איך הצבעתם, לא חשוב מאיפה באתם, מאיזו שפה אתם מדברים, מה צבע העור שלכם, איך אתם מתפללים. אני שומע אתכם. אני שומע שאתם אומרים שאנחנו יכולים לנוע קדימה אם אף אחד לא יישאר מאחור. העתיד המשותף שלנו בנוי מכל ועוד קול, דלת ועוד דלת, אך מעל הכל, אדם ואדם. זה משהו שלמדתי כשרצתי פעם ראשונה בפוליטיקה לפני 12 שנים. ב-12 השנים האחרונות הייתה לי את ההזדמנות לפגוש כל כך הרבה אנשים מרקעים שונים. כולם ביקשו ממני שאני אייצג אתכם בהרפתקה הנפלאה הזו, ואני אמשיך בה. יש הרבה אנשים שעבדו קשה, מאוד קשה, כדי להגיע לרגע הזה. חבריי הליברלים, ברכות. אם אתה מועמד, מתנדב, צוות, אני יודע שעבדתם מאוד קשה עד שעות הבוקר. אבל יחד עשינו משהו מדהים. תודה חברים.
And beyond everything, I want to thank my family.
I want to thank, as always, my mom, who's here tonight, who started going through election nights like this when she was a little girl, when my grandfather was running for Parliament in Vancouver North. But thank you, Mom, for always being there. Thank you. And Sophie,
And Sophie, 12 years ago, when we decided to be involved together in politics, it's because we wanted to defend our values, because we wanted to contribute to build a stronger Canada, and since the beginning, we did that together. Thank you. And to my children, Xavier,
Et Ella Grace.
Ella Grace,
Et Adrien qui dort depuis
Adrian
plusieurs
has been
heures
sleeping
déjà,
for many
comme
hours already,
nous devrions tous.
like we should all be.
On travaille fort pour vous bâtir
We're working
un
hard
meilleur
to
avenir,
build
un meilleur
the best
avenir
future,
pour
the
votre
best future for
génération et
your
les générations
generation and
futures.
the generations coming.
Chaque jour, vous
Every
me
day,
rappelez
you remind
ce
me
travail important
that this
qu'on est en train
important
de faire
job that
ensemble.
we are doing together.
Merci
So thank
pour
you
votre patience
for your
pendant
patience
que je dois faire cette job.
as I need to do this job.
Merci pour les sacrifices
Thank you
que
for the
vous faites.
sacrifices that you are doing.
We've all worked so hard over the last few weeks and over the last few years, and we have come so far. My friends, tonight I think of something Prime Minister Wilfrid Laurier said as his generation was at the dawn of a new century. He said, "Let them look to the past, but let them still more look to the future." Let us not forget the past and the dark days we have come through together, but let us still more look to the future and all that is still to come and all that we have still to build together. Let us feel the warmth of a new dawn, and above all, let us seize the promise of a brand new day. Merci, mes amis. Thank you, my friends. Merci tout le monde.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
הנה, כך מסתיים מסע הבחירות כאן בקנדה, מסע בחירות זריז בין 36 ימים. כשג'סטין טרודו החליט שהוא לוקח את המדינה הזו לבחירות, הוא רצה לבקש אישור, כך הוא אמר, אישור, מה שהוא עושה זה מה שהקנדים רוצים, רק בכמה נקודות זריזות, המשך תמיכה, המשך החלט אפשר לומר, המשך החלט. לפי מונחים של ישראל, המשך תמיכה באנשים שעבודתם נפגעה בגלל הקורונה, המשך מדיניות החיסונים, המשך התנגדות למתנגדי החיסונים. הוא רצה להכניס תו ירוק ודרכון ירוק ועוד הרבה מגבלות, כניסה רק למחוסנים למקומות עבודה. כל הדברים האלה יקבלו עכשיו כמובן תאוצה, יותר ויותר מגבלות על אנשים שלא מחוסנים. זה היה חלק מכל מסע הבחירות הזה בעצם. הוא קיבל התנגדות מאוד מאוד גדולה ממתנגדי חיסונים, אבל עדיין הוא קיבל את הרוב. המשך של מדיניות של החזרת הקנדים לעבודה, אבל באופן הדרגתי, כלומר המשך הקצבאות תמיכה, יחסים עם ארצות הברית, צינור הנפט, יש כל כך הרבה נושאים שעל הפרק, הגירה, טרודו ידוע בכך שהוא תומך גדול מאוד בהגירה ממדינות עולם שלישי על בסיס הומניטרי. כל זה יקבל עכשיו תאוצה נוספת. אנחנו לא יודעים מתי יהיו הבחירות הבאות. הוא אמר, יכול להיות שנצטרך ללכת שוב לבחירות בתוך עוד שנתיים. בואו נראה אם זה מה שיהיה. נכון לעכשיו הוא קיבל את המנדט להרכיב את הממשלה, את ממשלת המיעוט, ממשלת המיעוט הבאה, והוא ימשיך בכך. אנחנו פה מסיימים יום שידורים ויום של בחירות קנדיות מאוד רגועות, למרות שהיו כמה שעות שחשבו שאולי יהיה מהפך, היה איזשהו מין מומנטום, אבל בסופו של דבר אנחנו רואים אלו הם התוצאות שהתקבלו מיד בפה אחד על ידי כל הערוצים. המנהיגים עלו לפי סדר המפסיד עד למנצח. ארין אוטול אמר לג'סטין טרודו, אנחנו ניפגש בעוד 18 חודשים. אז אני רונן, שידרתי לכם את המהדורת עדכון לילית הזאת אצלנו. אנחנו הולכים לישון עכשיו 1:30 לפנות בוקר. לילה טוב בקנדה ובוקר טוב לכם בישראל. יש לנו עוד כמה שנים עם ג'סטין טרודו. מפלגת הליברלים נבחרה הלילה ברוב גדול בקנדה. שיהיה לכם בוקר נפלא, שבוע טוב וחג שמח. להתראות.
How do you complete that majority mission? How do you get there? And one of the dangers is that if you're
If your program is so big ticket, if it is so large, if you are saying we are making permanent the sorts of spending